welcome to the season finale or end episode of the stream. This is officially episode 18 if we're counting. But Will, it's been one hell of a journey, right? So we thought we'd come together just before the holidays to kind of riff and chat about some of our highlights and things we've learned or heard. So how are you? Looking dapper, by the way.
I thought I'd get dressed up to be at home in a condo.
Well, this is like our office Christmas party. Right. We're kind of getting dressed up, but without the alcohol and the disco. But hey, we can have fun.
I'll save that for next week. I mean, one of the many things learned during the year is that it's good for the head to not get dressed up, even if you're sitting in front of Zoom with who knows who.
Well, we had to. Do you remember the one episode with John Grant where we, for those of you who saw it, we actually put on a bow tie. Well, we attempted to tie a bow tie like John Grant, and then we asked him to tie it whilst walking on his treadmill, which was kind of the ultimate, which he passed with flying colours. And then we went on to have a chat about innovation. This is a nice little introduction because for people listening to the podcast, John is in fact walking on a treadmill. So if you do hear him getting out of breath towards the end, that explains it. And for people watching, the stream can take no responsibility for any motion sickness encountered whilst watching. So, John, good to see you. So we've got a lot to talk about, but your thing is bow ties, right? This is your signature, your party trick. And in fact, whilst we're talking, you've just tied it effortlessly by the look of it.
Yeah, not my best tie, but hey, I do what I can.
And in your honour, me and Will have actually we've spruced up today, right, Will? We've brought out the finest. Well, when I say the finest, prime delivery within 24 hours bow tie. But how's it's 5:30 there, Will? So it's a good effort to put that on that early.
Well, there are really very few people in the world that would get me to tie a bow tie at 5:30 in the morning.
Wait, I've got to say, you guys are looking stellar.
I will say that was the most stressful pre-podcast period for me, trying to do the bow tie thing. And in best of circumstances, tying a bow tie is deeply challenging. And
it's a life skill everyone should learn. I think I learned it and I've quickly forgotten it. So, but for that 30 minutes pre-podcast, I was in a state of stress. I think we both were. I messaged you, Will, how's it going? I was going to we need to get some clip-ons next time.
Well, why don't we make this commitment in public for next year that we'll do another bow tie. We'll actually ensure that we're not stressed and we can tie it on our own.
I think so. That's stage one, and stage two is just like John. We have to do it whilst walking and talking on a treadmill during a Zoom call. That's kind of the next stage, right?
No, maybe we'll do that in 2022. Tom, but
let's not get too ambitious here, right?
Yeah, let's not be too bold. I mean, bold is is good, as we know, but
so for you then, we came up with this idea months and months ago, and we've had 15 guests over the last several months. I think we've had topics ranging from AI to agriculture, water trading, through to blockchain, vertical farming. I mean, we always said we wanted to focus on the water, energy, food nexus and kind of have fun with the conversations was the core ambition, and invite people on that we could have fun with as well. So it's been a journey, hasn't it?
It's been a wonderful journey in a profoundly challenging year. And I'm so glad, I'm glad we had that dinner in Amsterdam with, I don't want to say many cocktails, but certainly a few to get us, ginning up the idea. I mean, it's been a year. It's just absolutely amazing. A little bit over a year, and it's been quite the journey. I was thinking about, our conversation today. What did I learn? What were the sort of interesting dimensions of doing this podcast? And I just think, in a year that we really have not had personal time together, with colleagues and friends. One of the big takeaways was, the personal stories that we heard from people that, I knew, and just heard them in a different way. And then, the people that I didn't know, like Yang, like I said, I now believe in Santa Claus again because of Yang.
Well, we want to throw to a few highlights, I think, in this special edition. So why don't we throw to that interview with Yang, some of the sound bites, as well as the finale solo that we heard as well. So we'll cut to that as well.
Yeah, I'd love to bust out a tune because I'm always ready.
Do it. Why not?
Wow.
We're gonna extend over that. Let me see this. So this is the ukulele, right? If you can
Yes.
lift it up into the camera. So yeah, give us this. This is a first for the stream, right? And this was generally unplanned. I was going to mention it. I didn't know you were going to bring it out and give us a number. So over to you.
I love it. Go for it.
You hear that well?
Yes, we can hear it. Yeah.
Very good. Now this is just going to be a quick one because it's close to Christmas. So this one's for all you guys. You better watch out. You better not cry. You better not cry to tell you why. Santa Claus is coming to town. Santa Claus is coming to town. Santa Claus is coming. Santa Claus is coming. Yeah, Santa Claus is coming to town.
There we go. I love this Will, amazing, right?
Yang, I want to hug you. You made my year. That was so moving. Thank you. Oh, and Stu and the Sturgeon. Stu's Sturgeon. It's like,
what was the title? Was Sheds, Shirts, and Sturgeon with Stuart Orr. Yeah, from the WWF. That was an incredible episode, wasn't it? In terms of, it was heartbreaking to hear about the statistics on biodiversity loss and the fact. Also, I think afterwards on social media, we had some great comments. One from Emma Weisbord, who said it's also heartbreaking that Stu's kind of felt like it's only now that he can stand out and kind of kick back and say what needs to be done, as opposed to allowing those honest and kind of quite frank conversations that we should allow anyway. So that for me was another great episode.
By biodiversity, I'm obviously speaking about fish species, but I'm also talking about invertebrates. I'm talking about amphibians, crocodilian species, birds. What we've done since 1970 with partners is track the overall abundance of terrestrial, marine, and freshwater species, right? And freshwater is the most impacted. And as you say, 84% loss. So we are down 84% of abundance since 1970. And within that, of course, our extinction rates are far, far higher than natural extinction rates. So we're going through species at a rate that is just really over the top. And in many ways, it kind of makes sense. Rivers and wetlands and lakes are very discrete systems. It's very hard for species to travel and migrate. You can imagine the second a dam or a blockade is put in a river, you've shut down a route of transmission. They are heavily polluted. They're heavily, we know that rivers are the center of political economies of any nation. So they are, they are in many ways the battlegrounds and so in many ways the hardest species to protect because they're also not seen by people. I mean, people just don't see the wonder of these incredible creatures. I mean, if I was to say to you, turtle, when I say turtles to people, they immediately think of ocean turtles. We have 262 species of freshwater turtle. That's 10, if not 15 times higher than ocean turtles, but people don't even know that basic fact, right? Listen to that, 2 species of shark, 5 species of dolphin, 150,000 different kinds of species of creatures that live in these amazing ecosystems. And their story does need to be told. And I think to some people in the water sector who come at this from a position of, we need more pipes and we need more pumps and we need more people, fantastic, that's great. But again, let's not forget that this water is connected to really important ecosystems and that these fisheries and these biodiversity are part of livelihoods, they're part of food security. In fact, if you look at the world's, the aquaculture report that the FAO puts out every couple of years, the state of the world's fisheries, the importance of inland fisheries is really, really high and really underestimated. We just aren't aware of how important it is to food security around the world. And so there's really intricate connections to people and biodiversity in these stories all over the world from so many different perspectives. And, you know, that story needs to be told. Unfortunately, the Living Planet Index is a sad story, and it allows you to tell it as it is. But at the same time, you've got to talk about what is possible and what we can save and what we should be working on. And that's also an important part of that story.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. And I would say that over the past 4 years, there's been more latitude to, for me to have a voice, unfiltered, and that's been important. And even this past year, it's accelerated. It's like, okay, yeah, life could be very short. What are you waiting for?
Right, 100%. Yeah, it's put everything into perspective. I think we maybe touched on that in the first couple of episodes, but no, I agree. This has been a great platform just to have these conversations where I certainly have learned so much from our guests and the different topics, and it's impossible for me to be an expert from all these different topics, but to kind of know a little bit about them all, and then to be able to engage, have a conversation, and dig out those personal stories, the water origin stories that we try to start with, has been really interesting.
Right. Well, yeah, the personal stories, and also as I was reflecting back on the past year, and you and I talk about this, often, diversity and inclusion, and boy, how much more we need to do, in terms of, gender diversity, geographic, perspectives, just that was a big takeaway. Like, you think what the issues are and you can talk about it, but the reality is there's so much more we could be doing.
Right.
And I think I mentioned to you, I had a conversation with Thor about young professionals and, how do we do better? No shortage of opportunities.
There's a long way to go. I mean, we had Jacob Amengor from Ghana was a fantastic guest talking about what was we had an interesting discussion. Why don't we cut to one of the highlights from that quickly? Yeah, I think those like you're saying, we're connecting that ecosystem between the young entrepreneurs, and I'm not going to use the word old because it's potentially offending people. I think we should probably change the way you describe senior and experienced water professionals is perhaps a better way to say it, Will. But
seasoned,
seasoned. Yeah, no, yeah.
Seasoned, like a braai.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Jacob, he mentioned about age almost being a restrictive factor in attracting finance. Do you remember the conversation we had? And we said, look, it should be based on ability and your credibility to solve the problem. I mean, age is a factor, but it shouldn't be the deciding factor. I thought that was a really interesting conversation. And then we kind of danced a little bit about the phrasing. I remember you joked about we should pair old and young water professionals, to which I kind of picked you up on that and said, well, we really need to rethink the phrasing on the word old there. Senior or seasoned perhaps is a bit better, right?
So I, personally prefer seasoned, but happy to team up with a young professional and, be part of the solution as opposed to, part of the problem. I will say that one of the things that you surprised me with, as we think about having these conversations with people, is introducing me to the braai.
Oh, right. With David Grant from PepsiCo.
Yeah, which, was confirmed by Andre, Fourie.
It was right afterwards, yeah.
And it's hardly a day that goes by I'm not craving this South African braai, which I believe we all committed to doing in Colorado next year. So
we did. It's not signed, but I think a verbal agreement on the stream, which counts the same, right? So why don't we let's take a little look at that episode if we can. But just to change track a little bit, David, I've got a very, very serious business question for you. do you braai?
Oh, loads. It's
The only reason I say that is because it's in my head to ask you, talking about woking, is only because I complete change in tack. I know this is kind of what we do on the stream. We will come back to water stewardship eventually, but I think it's worth dressing you our first South African guest on the show. Is I had a friend who came to an annual barbecue on the green, and he was almost kind of looked at the way us British barbecue, you know, with it's in the rain, burning sausages and burgers, and he said, okay, I'm going to take over. And he literally bought a whole collection of marinades. He had temperature zones on the barbecue. He had a tool belt with different kits and thermometers. This guy was a seasoned professional, and I learned quite a lot from him. But he said, we do it, this is kind of almost like a religion in South Africa, because you have a more favourable climate. And so I just thought, when we had you on, I thought, I've got to ask this guy about the braai. And it's good. So I take it from your reaction, this is something that's close to you. And it does link to food and beverage in a way, so it's not completely...
No, that's fair. No, I mean, my first encounter with a British barbecue was interesting.
Please enlighten us.
And it did involve a couple of pork sausages and hamburgers and what resembled chicken in varying stages of burntness, versus typical South African braai, which probably involves half a cow at least, and a couple of other things. But yeah, it is definitely a kind of a very ingrained cultural way of doing outdoor cooking, put it that way. Actually, I recall the first braai I did in the UK was in the snow, and I recall sitting under an umbrella with the snow falling around,
with hailstorms around you, and
absolutely can't stop the tradition.
So yeah, I mean, it was really. I always think, how can we mix things up? We can have a standard conversation. We can, for example, David Grant, water stewardship strategy expert guru, and we kind of talked a bit about that and the evolution of stewardship to strategy, as well as I remember we touched upon the potential of reusing water as an ingredient, reusing wastewater as an ingredient within the food and beverage, and that kind of discussion with multinationals. But I always think, how can we add something different, creative or fun to the conversation? So then I thought, actually, he's South African, locally South African, and says that the braai is like a religion, and he showed me the way of the braai. So I thought, let's just randomly chuck that in as a bit of a curveball to David. And to be fair to him, he smashed it right back and came back, and then we were having a conversation about favorite charcoal uses and favorite barbecue types. It was great.
It sounds like a fire hazard, just at an incredible scale. So yeah, I learned a lot and had a good time, and I believe that was the intention, that we ginned up over. I was drinking martinis. I'm not sure. I don't remember what you drank, Tom. So
probably too many martinis to.
Okay, well there we go.
It was a great. It was from an idea, and I remember on episodes 1 and 2, we were kind of like, oh, should we bring guests in? And then we thought, let's trial it, and we had a Katrina Donaghy from Australia.
She was great,
blockchain, amazing. And then we kind of had this thing with the shirts, almost by accident. I remember at the start you said, Tom, should I put on a flannel shirt to match? It was like, let's go with it. And that the shirt theme has carried on throughout, which is really great. But there were some fantastic kind of statements and things that just made us both stop, I think. And one that you mentioned, Andre Fourie from AB InBev, and we're talking about kind of the future of water stewardship. And do you remember he kind of reiterated a phrase from the CEO, Carlos Brito, where he said, so you're telling me, Andre, that water stewardship and where you see us going is in countries where we're operating, water is in a better place than when we're not. Right. And I think we both just paused and thought, wow.
A few years ago, I was explaining to our CEO, Carlos Brito, our water stewardship strategy and what we're trying to do, and all the convoluted stuff of investing in watersheds and quality and quantity and how you invest and how you would measure. And this is a complicated discussion to have at the best of time, and to try and explain to your CEO that, no, I don't have full control of it, and I'm not 100% sure how fast it's going to go or what our partner would do. And he had a really interesting response. He said, okay, so what you're trying to tell me is wherever we operate, your dream is that wherever we operate, water would be better than if we were not there. And that to me is the most simple explanation of what we're trying to say, is we want to move away from the idea of how much water did we use, how much did we return, and saying, if we were not there, water would be in a worse situation than if we are. If we operate in that place, we will invest in a way that will be good, not just for ourselves, and just be responsible for how we use water, but the place will be better if you measure it in terms of water.
That summarized kind of where some other conversations we've had and we're trying to push towards. I think that was a really great point.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, one of the things that really struck me about that comment is that was so simple.
Right.
And I believe water professionals in general, except you, of course, you know, struggle with the complexity of the topic, and we just don't make it simple and approachable. And you know what Brito did was elegantly simple in terms of what's the value. Okay.
He looked at an extremely complicated kind of political and historic challenge of how do you achieve stewardship. I know we've talked about kind of going beyond the strategy, and you're right, he summed it up in that one beautiful sentence, which is great. But I mean, beyond we had some guests, I guess, a narrative arc. We kind of had AB InBev, PepsiCo,
right,
and then yeah, I mean, we've had some great guests. I mean, there's an episode with Kelly Trott from Imagine H2O. Do you remember? It was kind of the TikTok theme, but she there is a segue here, I think. Let me just try and work it out.
Go for it, Tom. Go for it, and I'll see where it goes.
Let me just think. I think this is going to work. Right, bear with me. So you mentioned about keeping the communication simple, and then a phrase that Kelly said was when she's getting the award nominees and companies as part of the Imagine cohort, is when you're talking about your solution, talk to me as if I'm your grandma. Do you remember how she said that? And she said, just think about, I'm a grandma. I'm not a water engineer. I'm not a technical guy, academic. Talk to me like I'm your grandma. And I thought that was a great way. And then the conversation went on to kind of the use of TikTok and social.
So I think this is awesome. I mean, for a lot of reasons, one of which is you did not use the word blockchain, AI, fintech, IoT, edge computing. Kelly, this is really terrific.
Well, I did warn you guys. Like, I am not a technical person. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a PhD. So one thing I do make all the winners talk to me about is like, how would you describe what you do? Like you're describing it to your grandma, because I am essentially your grandma. Because I think part of all of this is like, we really want these solutions to be connecting to people too, right? Oftentimes when you talk about it, people are like, IoT, machine learning, and you're like, I don't get it. So I think a big part of what I want out of the work I get to do is connecting solutions to people, those human experiences. And Katrina is a wonderful example of how to connect kind of her solution to people. And a big reason that everyone was so excited about what she's doing is that they're making a really interesting product to a pain point that now people are like, understand and get, and that she's able to describe what is their impact and kind of what is their vision for the future around SDGs.
And shortly afterwards, we both got on TikTok, right?
Right, and we've been prolific, right, Tom?
One follower each.
Yes, I think that's
which is each other.
They were following each other. Well, okay, so perhaps.
Well, we're getting there. Slow progress, but we are on it. Accounts have been created, and we now need to go forwards and populate with content.
So I think it's the braai, TikTok, and bow ties for 2021.
We have to continue, and I think that's what we want to do, right? We've already mapped out season 2. Well, at least the first 6 guests. We're not going to say who they are just yet, a nice surprise, but we want to bring back people who bring back all the guests if we could, but certain individuals to the sort of tail end of season 2, right? Just to catch up on what was said and how things have changed.
Right.
So I think we're definitely going to do that.
I look forward to a full year.
A full and productive year. Yeah, we've just put out the cover art for season 2, the promo, which was part inspired by William Gibson's Cyberpunk, as well as maybe a hint of Miley Cyrus. I think is a healthy cocktail.
I think Gibson follows Miley, so I think it's perfect fit.
Yeah, it's a nice recipe of both, right? So, but anyway, listen, I've had great fun. It's been, like you said, it's been a tough year globally for everyone, and this has been a nice creative outlet and been enjoyable and fun conversations as well. So we hope that people who have watched and listened also have managed to laugh at the points where we've had fun, and also hopefully learn a thing or two as well.
Completely agree. Doing this with you, I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for everyone that I met, and grateful for friends and colleagues, which is really one and the same, that volunteered to take a chance.
to take a risk and join us for an unscripted, unedited conversation, right? Because that's what it was. We had a couple of talking points, but most of the time we kind of went off piste and tried to come back on piste as much as we could. But it's been a great year, great season, and looking forward to hopefully meeting people in person next year again, and even doing some of these episodes in person. Imagine how cool that would be.
Well, I'm counting on it next year. So maybe we'll see folks at IWA.
Copenhagen in the spring, right? So one for the diary. But good stuff. All right. Well, Will, I know we wanted to keep this short and sweet, so it's been a pleasure kind of partnering, co-hosting with you on this. And again, a big thanks to all the guests and the listeners for making this happen. And looking forward to coming back with season 2 next year.
Sounds great, Tom. It's been good fun.
All right. Well, pleasure. And we'll look forward to seeing everyone in 2021.
Yeah. Happy holidays.